Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining MaRS Discovery District today as we announce our inaugural carbon removal credit purchase. This is a huge announcement for us coming out of our Mission from Mars carbon management program. We're excited to share it all with you. My name is Andy Lamb. I'm the Senior Manager of Climate Programs here at MaRS, where I lead our Mission from Mars program. Mission from Mars is a series of initiatives focused on accelerating the adoption of climate innovations. I also have the good fortune of being your MC for the day. Joined with me from our MaRS climate sector team is Ria Perot, who will be moderating our panel later in the session, as well as Niet Jabrave and Tyler Hamilton, who are supporting on the back end. So if you have any tech issues or questions, please message Ria or Niet in the chat. Let's start with some logistics. So the entire event will be recorded and will be uploaded to our Mission from Mars website in a couple of weeks. There's also a live transcription option on the bottom, which you can toggle by clicking the button. And then also the Q&A function is active. Given we have a pretty tight agenda today, we won't have time built in to do formal Q&A. But that said, if you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A function to our program team, to the CDR suppliers if you have any, or to the panelists, and we'll try to respond to them live via the chat. Otherwise, we can follow up via email afterwards. So what do we have in store for you today? Once I wrap up this welcome, I'm going to share details around our exciting credit purchase, including why we did it, how we did it, and also where we see this evolving. From there, you'll hear from one of our partners and sponsors. And then you're going to hear from all 5 of the suppliers that MaRS has purchased credits from to get a sense of what they're doing, how they're generating credits, what type of benefits they're providing to their communities, and et cetera. Then we'll spend the second half of the hour in a panel discussion with our expert reviewers to talk about what's needed to catalyze the voluntary carbon markets, but then also getting specific in terms of things like the challenges, best practices, and lessons learned when evaluating proposals for CDR purchases. So getting into it, before I talk about the purchase, I'll first mention that this credit purchase that MaRS is doing is just one initiative as part of our broader carbon management mission. The carbon management mission is a 5-year program, and it allows MaRS to essentially double down in supporting this important suite of technologies, being carbon removal technologies. Our objectives for the missions are to, 1, increase the supply of carbon removal technologies in the market. That's essentially the work that we do in helping our ventures commercialize, deploy, and scale. 2nd, we want to increase the demand for credits and overall support the adoption of these technologies, essentially enabling and educating the market so that customers are ready for this. And finally, supporting government as they develop new programs and policies to regulate and support this broader market. Everything that we do within the carbon management space will map back to at least one of those. I know there are a lot of experts in the room, but some of you may be thinking, what is carbon removal? So I'll spend 30 seconds in just talking a bit about what it is. So as you know, the biggest driver of climate change is the emitting of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere through human activities, the most abundant gas being carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide removal essentially are activities that remove carbon directly from the atmosphere. We know that trees and plants already do this as part of the carbon cycle. But there are climate innovations that could remove large quantities of carbon, and they can also store it away permanently for thousands of years. If deployed at a planetary scale, we can see CDR slowing the rate of global warming. But then there are also other environmental co-benefits, like alleviating ocean acidification, not to mention some of the different economic development opportunities. It is important to stress, though, that CDR is not a substitute for reducing GHG emissions, which is first and foremost the most important. And MaRS has many innovators that help decarbonize stuff like industrial operations, buildings, fleets, homes. but CDR is meant to help balance hard to abate emissions, whether it's decarbonizing stuff, or sorry, things that are harder to decarbonize right now, like long distance transport, like ships and planes. And as well, one of the reasons we like CDR is that it's a mechanism to address the historical emissions that we've already put up in the atmosphere already. Taking a look at the CDR market in Canada, it's still very nascent, still very early. There's only been a handful of transactions where Canadian organizations have purchased from Canadian suppliers. We've checked, we've looked on CDR FYI, and there's been less than 10 of them. And these are led by some of Canada's largest organizations like Shopify, TD, BMO, and Air Canada. It's definitely a start, but we're still quite a ways away. We are seeing now more and more interest from the public sector, not just through R&D grants, but through procurement. Actually, recently, they've recognized that hard to abate emissions, like military and marine and long haul transport, will be hard to abate over the next couple of decades, and they will require CDR to eventually achieve net zero. But a huge win for us last week, actually, in the federal budget, there was a footnote that stated that the low carbon transport fuels program has now expanded to allow for CDR procurement, which is great to see. But in general, still very early. Core buyers are still, a lot of them are still developing their broader climate strategies. They're focused on reduction as they should be, but they're still learning and understanding about what CDR is. So if you take a look at the product adoption lifecycle, which we have lower on the slide there, CDR is still at the very onset, the knowledge and awareness area, and it could take years to get out there, which we don't have. Carbon Removal Canada and the report they put out last year, Ready to Remove, they set a target for 5 million tons or 5 megatons of CO2 to be removed by 2030. We're still quite a ways away from there. So in order to get there, we will need to take action today. And that's what led us to do this credit purchase. So as of now, we're calling this purchase our Mission from Mars Liftoff program. The Liftoff program is a fund that aims to accelerate the growth and market adoption of early stage CDR ventures. So it's a small purchase, but it's meant to be our first, hopefully, of many. We're purchasing credits from 5 ventures who are working with MaRS already as we help them grow and scale and deploy. And through this pre-purchase, we hope to support our ventures by becoming a key reference customer that may leverage this to demonstrate to other customers and importantly funders that they have some traction. And by being a customer ourselves, we hope to send a demand signal to the market and continue to educate the marketplace and hopefully inspire others like you all here today to take action. I see Nihat has posted the newswire. Yes, there it is. Take a look at the press release. It talks more about the purchase. So these are our main purchasing criteria. For the sake of time, I won't go through all of these, but I'll mention 2 things. So first, the credits that we're buying from these companies, they need to be additional, verifiable, net negative, and permanent. If you want to learn what that all means, you can reach out to our team after, and we're happy to talk about it. Second thing I'll mention is that the ventures need to also demonstrate that they've thought about diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and reconciliation. That includes both internally as an organization and having things like strong DEI policies and hiring practices, which is important because we see these companies being the next big green job creators in Canada and the world, but then also importantly, externally. So making sure that they have strategies and or have already done some sort of engagement with local and Indigenous communities where their projects will be. But yeah, we're happy to talk with anyone who's interested in any of this criteria offline. So here's a high-level overview of our process. We essentially decided to do this last summer. We spent a few months doing our rounds internally to get buy-in, understand how we would even do this from a legal, procurement, and finance perspective, and then got our approvals. This is the first time we're doing something like this. It took a lot of education, and that internal education actually is still ongoing, but in principle, most people were receptive. They just had to wrap their heads around how it would actually work and how we would do it. We afterwards we designed RFP and the due diligence process. We invited our suppliers to apply, and then we underwent that due diligence process. That included our own internal screening. We did intensive third-party reviews with expert reviewers who you're actually going to hear from in a few minutes on our panel. And then one thing I'll actually mention that although the credit purchasing process, it could be daunting, it was for us, but there are a lot of resources out there that could guide you throughout the entire process. So for example, the Frontier Fund, $1 billion CDR credit purchasing fund, includes the world's largest organizations like Google, Facebook, Stripe, Shopify, JP Morgan, and others. They publish everything on their GitHub, which Deanne just posted in the chat there, including their application forms, their pre-purchasing contracts, in template form. So this has made it so much easier for us. Over 75% of the questions in our own RFP are verbatim, copy and pasted from Frontier's applications. They're spending a lot of money in doing these purchases. We know that they're putting a lot of resources into putting together the process as well. So for us, we'd also want to endorse standardized processes in doing these things, but it made it easier for us, made it easier for our teams, even for our lawyers. We were then able to just use our own MaRS legal procurement paper, but pulling in the CDR related elements from Frontier. But yeah, happy to chat about the criteria and how we conducted due diligence to anyone that's interested. Definitely send us a note. So finally, our vision for Liftoff program is that this will be a multi-year initiative that will help get the market to where it needs to be. This is our first purchase. We're spending a total of $60K across 5 ventures. We hope to maybe 3 exit or 4 exit next year. We're doing the fundraising right now to do that. We want to do a bigger launch. We want to open up to other CDR companies outside of the MaRS portfolio. It's a mechanism for us to recruit new companies too. And then eventually, we do have a vision to turn this into a bigger model, maybe some sort of buyers group or consortium in Canada. It wouldn't be something that MaRS would lead. We're not structured to do something like this. So we are actively looking for partners that could be interested in participating in that purchasing model, and or as well partnering with us to deliver it. So if anyone is interested in supporting any of this, particularly in helping the credit purchase, we are fundraising. We're a nonprofit and a charity. A lot of our support comes from philanthropic donors to do what we do and to support our ventures for free. So if you know of anyone that's interested, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. And finally, this is now my last slide. Importantly, we want to thank our funding partners and supporters. I mentioned MaRS is a nonprofit. Mission from MaRS is almost fully funded by our philanthropic donors. 3 particular donors supported this credit purchase. That's the Consicon Foundation, the RBC Foundation, and the Peter Gilgan Foundation. So big thanks to these folks. With that, I'd like to bring up Brian Hong from RBC, one of our core partners for carbon management mission. Brian's the Director of Environmental Market Solutions Group at RBC Capital Markets and a deep thought leader when it comes to carbon markets broadly. Over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Andy. That's too kind. First of all, big congratulations to MaRS on this significant milestone. I think it's super exciting. So hi, everyone. As Andy mentioned, my name is Brian Hong, and I lead the Environmental Market Solutions Group at RBC. Our team acts as a center of expertise and market maker for the carbon markets, and we have the privilege of working with really exciting companies like the ones you'll hear from today, and including with a couple of them as well. When I talk to clients about why CDR is important, I always lead with the science. And based on analysis by the IPCC and others, we know that the world needs 7 to 10 billion tons of carbon removal by 2050 in order to reach net zero and limit warming to well below 2 degrees. We also know that today's supply of CDR is measured in the low millions, not even close to the billions that are going to be needed. And we also know we only have 25 years to close this supply gap. So the work is immense, but that means that the work of the companies highlighted today and the work that everyone, I think, on the call, given your interest in this space, the work of everyone in this space is so incredibly important. Demand is the other side of the scaling equation, and that's something that we're intensely focused on as well. We know that the carbon markets are a crucial tool to scaling CDR and reaching net zero, and we're doing what we can to help the market grow by directly supporting companies in the space and, of course, supporting great initiatives like this mission from MaRS and this inaugural purchase that they're making. We're also really encouraged, I'd say, by the recent developments of the Science Based Targets Initiative, despite maybe the drama and controversy there. But we think that ultimately it's going to land in a positive place and be a huge demand driver going forward, especially for things like CDR. And we've always been pushing for additional tools for corporates to meet their climate commitments, especially and specifically, I'd say, for Scope 3, which remains a huge challenge for everyone. The last point I just wanted to quickly make was just how deeply encouraging I find it, that and how exciting it is that all of the companies featured today are Canadian. There's been a lot of discussion and media around Canada falling behind and our lagging productivity, but our leadership in CDR, I think, is a huge source of inspiration and a huge opportunity for our country. So with that, again, a big congratulations to MaRS and all of the companies on this milestone purchase, and looking forward to continuing all this work with you guys as we all try and scale this market. I'll turn it back to Andy. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Brian, thanks so much. And we agree with that sentiment. This is a huge opportunity for Canada. And we see Canada well positioned to be a leader within the CDR space. Awesome. So the moment that I know a lot of you have been waiting for, which is our introducing and unveiling of who we're buying credits from. So we're buying credits from 5 companies. You're going to hear from all 5 of them in a second. These technologies span the spectrum of the different CDR pathways, whether it's removing CO2 from the air, from oceans, from rivers, from rocks. So super exciting. Let's get into it. So I'll first start off by introducing Paul Needham, CEO of ARCA. Over to you.
Hello. Hey there. Sorry, fiddling with my mic here. Hi, I'm Paul Needham. I'm the CEO of ARCA. At ARCA, our mission is to restore the atmosphere by capturing gigatons of carbon dioxide from the air and transforming it into rock, where it's safely stored forever. We're developing industrial-scale carbon dioxide removal projects that are repurposing mine waste from critical metal mines to capture and permanently store atmospheric CO2 into solid carbonate minerals. Today, we're working with several producers of nickel to help them measure and maximize the carbon dioxide removal potential of their mine waste. There are already nearly 200 billion tons of suitable mine waste sitting on the surface of the planet from historical mining. This waste material contains minerals that have the potential to capture and permanently store 40 gigatons of carbon dioxide in solid mineral form. Next slide. We use robots such as these to accelerate a natural geochemical process called carbon mineralization, the transformation of CO2 into rock. Under the right conditions, carbon dioxide molecules from the air chemically bind with magnesium present in this material to form new magnesium carbonate minerals. Our team has developed the ability to actually see carbon dioxide moving from the air into the ground in real time. And with precise measurements of CO2 flux rates, we're able to optimize our treatment process for maximum impact. We also take samples of the material to measure the carbon content before and after our treatment to quantitatively demonstrate that carbon dioxide has been captured and permanently stored in mineral form. Next slide. At ARCA, we are rocking CO2 for a livable planet. In November 2023, we announced our collaboration with BHP, one of the world's largest producers of nickel for the EV industry. We're launching the world's first carbon mineralization project that utilizes historical mine waste. That project is now live, and the MaRS Liftoff Fund is helping to accelerate our work there. We believe that great Canadian companies are ready to take responsibility for their emissions, ready to reduce and remove CO2. With industrial scale carbon dioxide removal, together we can restore the atmosphere to proper balance. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paul. Love what you're doing, and love that your technology also addresses mining waste, which I know we have a lot of. Next up is Luke Connell, co-founder and CEO of Carbon Run. Luke, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. Great to see everyone, some familiar faces and some new faces as well. So Carbon Run is a Nova Scotia-based carbon removal company. We restore rivers, and while we do that, we also draw down carbon. We use a safe limestone material to transport carbon to the ocean for long-term storage. And what you're looking at here is one of our first deployments of a river alkalinity enhancement facility in rural Nova Scotia. My partners and I spent the last 5 years developing a new pathway for carbon removal by enhancing rivers' ability to transport carbon to the ocean. And rivers offer a great opportunity to use safe material and watch that happen in real time. Next slide, please. What we do is we add limestone to rivers through those silos that you saw and watch that transform into bicarbonate, which goes to the ocean for permanent storage. Next slide. And what it allows us to do is have some excellent carbon accounting. We can have a baseline to measure against, and then we have real-time observable observation that we translate into carbon removals. We've had some great fortune with some excellent customers supporting our new technology. So in the fall, had a pre-purchase similar to ARCA and Planetary with Frontier Climate that Andy mentioned. And since then, we've continued to find traction with some great customers, with some exciting announcements on top of this one coming in the near future. I'm going to transition, and I just want to say thank you to MaRS for doing this. I think MaRS is a key catalyst in Canada. I think there's an increasingly larger appeal for this buyers club model. We're seeing more and more of this, and we hope that more companies would put their hand up and say, hey, let's de-risk this purchase by working with a group like MaRS to look at aspects of this that we don't have the ability to analyze. So their ability to bring together the right stakeholders, the right experts, I think hopefully this is the first of many examples to come, and I'm glad to hear that there's plans for follow-up funds, and I'd be surprised if you don't have interest in that going forward. And I think, like, on that note, for us at Carbon Run, there's a great ecosystem of non-dilutive support, grants, government support, but really the biggest driver for our industry to go forward is going to be customer demand. So again, I applaud them for taking that chance early on high-priced, credits that have not been created yet. It takes a bit of a leap of faith, and the trust comes later, but I think they'll be validated with this whole process. So I'll pass it off, but I wanted to, again, thank MaRS for their leadership here.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for the overview, and thanks for the kind words, and thanks for selling us your credits. Next
Anytime.
up. Awesome. Jenny Shaw, co-founder and CEO of Gaia Refinery. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Andy. Hello, everybody. I'm Jenny Shaw, one of the co-founders and the Chief Executive Officer at Gaia Refinery. We're based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, but our R&D headquarters, our CTO and pilot operations are running out of Ottawa at the moment. So we're multiple places across Canada. Our goal is to accelerate carbon removal by developing a globally scalable, low energy, low cost solution that fits within the bioeconomy and its industries. So really briefly, our technology is a circular solution that merges direct air capture with biomass carbon removal. And this innovative approach utilizes liquid DAC capture technology and biogenic sources of acetic acid to capture 3 streams of carbon dioxide, offering potentially a more cost-effective solution than current DAC technologies. And it's a hybrid technology that requires less electricity, captures more carbon dioxide per ton of biomass, and can achieve efficient scale at a smaller plant size. We fit alongside the bioeconomy because we tap into biomass-based market verticals, 2 of which are here: the agricultural sector, the forestry sector, and sectors that have like wood vinegar as waste products, and even ethanol, which is the largest bioconversion industry in the world. Currently, what you see here is our pilot. We're ramping up to build and run our pilot, and we can't state exactly who, but we have a number of LOIs and MOUs in place or being developed that might use, ethanol or wood vinegar as our feedstock source. And then depending on siting in that, we have a couple of partnerships in place with sequestration companies. So this is generally the pilot that's going to be developing the credits. But we're here today to talk about, next slide, please, the impact and co-benefits of a pre-purchase agreement, especially for a small company like us. And I use this picture because we're kind of like that top rock. So we're still small. We're taking carbon dioxide and making it into rock, and we're placing it on top, and we hope to get much, much bigger. But really, a pre-purchase agreement like this talks to the ripple effect and changing the narrative. So the ripple effect is changing behaviors and mindset through action. And validation comes in many forms. It's a signal that our technology is sound and is a good idea. It's been vetted by professionals and experts in the CDR space. And what it does is it unlocks the industry, so in the bioeconomy, and it's showing them what is possible, what is profitable, and what is needed. On the support side, it gives a little bit of money to de-risk the technology and unlock more undiluted funds that we can use. And that moves into job creation and job security. And we also think that the support will hopefully provide leadership FOMO in the bio industry and other places. And lastly, it's about changing the narrative, getting press releases and awareness out there that takes us from it's too hard or I don't know how to help to getting our hands dirty and collectively doing our part. So again, I do want to thank MaRS for putting this on, and it's a significant step in our journey forward and many others to come. Thanks.
Awesome, Jenny. Thanks so much. Next up, Mike Helland, CEO of Planetary.
So hi, everybody. I want to just echo what everybody's saying. Thanks very much, MaRS, for putting this together. And these kinds of pre-purchases are critical for scaling an industry that we all know is going to be required to be at scale in order to meet our climate commitments. The video you see here is kind of our raison d'etre. And effectively, how you can think about it is that carbon dioxide in the air and carbon dioxide in the ocean are actually inextricably linked. They're just tied directly together. As we perform industrial activities of any kind, the CO2 in the air is also going to dissolve into the ocean. And because CO2 is an acid, it effectively acidifies the ocean. Right now, we're adding, with our current levels of emissions, about 27 million tons per day of acidic CO2 into the ocean as a result. And what Planetary does is very simple. We do what you would typically do with an acid in water, and we neutralize that acid with an antacid. The antacid then turns that CO2 into bicarbonate, which is essentially a building block of shells and marine life. And the result is that the ocean is restored in its capacity and its capability to pull carbon out of the air. So it's restore the ocean, restore the climate. We started our groundbreaking project last year, our pilot system in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Last year, we removed a little bit less than 100 net tons of CO2 from the atmosphere using the system you see here. And this year, we'll remove a little over 1,100 net tons of CO2 from the air. And this is the project that MaRS is purchasing carbon from. This system is a very simple system. It essentially safely and measurably doses alkalinity into seawater to neutralize that CO2. And the exciting part of the project this coming year is that it looks like we'll be able to directly measure the carbon removed or the additional carbon that this process removes from the atmosphere using the ocean in a sea surface, direct measurement kind of way, making our MRV essentially equivalent to direct air capture. We can skip ahead on this. And the big deal with this is that marine CDR, because of the simplicity of that, just cleaning up a little bit of antacid in the ocean and the high impact that that has on the atmosphere, it has the potential to be a very large part of what the IPCC says we need to do in terms of carbon removal. And so in Halifax, what we're seeing is that we're essentially birthing a $700 billion industry. By 2050, this could be up to that scale of an industry with a set of partners at Planetary, the Carbon to Sea Initiative, Nova Scotia Power, Dalhousie University, and Cove, and building up a system that is collaborative, inviting in businesses from all around the world to come to Canada and take part in the creation of this industry over the next few years. We see it as a huge opportunity for all of the coasts of Canada. We're starting in Halifax right now, but the environmental co-benefits of deacidifying the ocean are one thing, but even beyond that, I think the economic benefits to Canada of maintaining leadership in this space could be absolutely massive.
Awesome. Mike, thank you. Last but definitely not least, Vita Gabriel, co-founder and COO of TerraFixing. Over to you, Vita.
Thanks, Andy. And thank you to MaRS and all partners for pioneering this carbon removal credit purchase. It's, I think, pioneering the space here in Canada. And I know I'm echoing what my co-panelists have said just before. I have no doubt that the Liftoff Fund, it will be remembered in Canada, I think, in our carbon removal history as the first Canadian fund to pre-buy carbon removals. I don't know if that's a fact. Someone's going to have to fact check me about that. Anyhow, I'm Vita Gabriel, one of the co-founders of TerraFixing. We're a direct air capture company, and our mission is to offer, larger scale, lowest cost carbon removals. And so to do that, we've designed a DAC process that thrives in cold climates because, we firmly believe that capturing CO2 from cold air is easier and cheaper. So this is where we've targeted our, engineering efforts. So you can think of direct air capture as large vacuum filters which suck in atmospheric air, it captures the CO2. We then concentrate it and permanently store it underground. So apart from generating carbon removals, and we'll go back to one slide, apart from generating carbon removals, the technology has several environmental benefits. So we don't need fossil fuels to operate, just renewables, and in fact, we can run on intermittent power. The technology does not consume or use any water or any chemicals in the process. We just use zeolites, which don't need to be replaced, by the way, in the process. The technology has a very small footprint. It can be built off-site, simple installation, and it can also be removed afterwards by the end of the project life, so minimal impact to fauna and flora. So it removes greenhouse gases, thereby improving air quality, and finally, no byproducts of our technology, so no downstream pollution or any concerns like that to think about. The carbon removals that MaRS purchased through the Liftoff Fund were from our project, which will be located in the township of Fermont. That's where that red dot is. This is in northern Quebec. It's near the iron mine there, if you're aware of it, and the unit will have a capacity of 1,000 tons of CO2 per year. You might be surprised to learn that the mine and the community in Fermont run on fossil fuels. They're reliant on diesel, and this is actually not uncommon as you move into northern Canada. So they have been searching for energy alternatives. And although the wind blows strong in Fermont, it's uneconomical for them to deploy wind power. Both the mine and the community are still reliant on diesel. One of the special features of our technology is that it was designed to be compatible with intermittent power. So we can turn our technology on and off based on the energy supply. And so one of the co-benefits of our project is the deployment of wind turbines for the township of Fermont. So because of our project, we're able to reduce the cost of renewable power for the mine and the community. And this is just by virtue of being a power off-taker. And so for the first time, the township of Fermont will have access to renewables and a path to achieve energy independence, so they can start to electrify. And this is possible because we can act, or our technology can act as an energy demand response. We turn on when the wind blows strong, we turn off when the wind is weaker, and allow the mine and the community to have access to that renewable power. And so thanks, I'll mention real quick that our partners at Tuglet Energy are the ones who are deploying the wind turbines, so thank you to them. And again, thank you to Andy, Ria, and Niat, the whole team at MaRS, for making this carbon removal purchase happen.
Awesome. Vida, thanks so much. Thanks to all the speakers. So in summary, we purchased from 5 companies: Arca, Carbon Run, Planetary, Gaia Refinery, and Terra Fixing. If you'd like to learn more or be connected to any of these companies, feel free to message someone from the MaRS team if you don't have these companies' info directly. I'm happy to connect. Great. So let's move on to our panel for the remainder of this session. Happy to introduce my colleague and partner in crime, Ria Perot, associate on our climate programs team. Ria, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel today with our 3 expert reviewers. We have joining us Akash Rastogi from the Ocean Frontier Institute, Rick Berg from NORI, and Tim Bushman from Carbon Removal Canada. These 3 experts bring the technical expertise, and they did our expert review for this purchase, but they also have a really strong understanding of this new market. So this panel is really going to be focused on that market itself and what this purchase means for CDR in Canada. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'd like to just jump right into it. And Tim, we'll start with you. So Carbon Removal Canada, where you're the Director of Policy and Research, recently published a report stating that Canada needs 5 megatons of carbon removal by 2030 in order to reach our climate goals. What role do carbon markets play in achieving global climate targets?
Yeah, thanks, Ria. I know we're a bit behind schedule, so I'll really try and streamline my comments here, but just want to first and foremost say thank you to Ria, to Andy, to the entire MaRS team for hosting this event, and certainly, warm congratulations on just spearheading this really exciting new round of carbon removal purchases. I do think these purchases truly are catalytic for the market, and it's because of efforts like yours and groups like yours that we're really starting to see some really exciting developments in the carbon removal space. So in terms of the role that carbon markets play in achieving global climate targets, I would say that they're absolutely fundamental for a number of reasons. Those reasons include mobilizing finance just through existing market constructs, directing financial flows to projects around the world, and that includes to the global south, and helping to scale climate solutions and new innovations. In the context of carbon removal, the voluntary carbon market has played an indispensable role, most certainly, in kickstarting just the early sort of project development pipeline and providing early capital support to various companies. Just in terms of market sizing, estimates suggest that the voluntary market reached a total value of around $2 billion at present. And various industry projections certainly point to a market that we think will continue to grow and scale into the future. However, I would just note that carbon removal only currently occupies a very small segment of the voluntary market. Carbon Direct actually did a great analysis on this. They found that only 3% of projects in the voluntary market as of now are just sort of pure play carbon removal projects. So most of the market, currently consists of just really emissions reduction and avoidance projects. Hopefully in the future, we'll, through these types of purchases, we'll see, the market kind of shift a bit from a high risk market dominated by non-carbon removal projects with challenges to project quality, really toward a high quality market that prioritizes durable removal. But I would say it's important to note that the voluntary market, certainly can't do it all. And so we kind of need to explore as many options as possible, just in terms of, scaling this industry. And I think a major lever most certainly to pull includes thinking about integrating carbon removal as a compliance option within carbon pricing and regulatory schemes, especially just given the sheer size of those markets in aggregate globally, which are somewhere hovering around 850 billion as of 2021. So they're very, very large market constructs. What could that look like in practice? We've been thinking a lot about this as of late. I think there are kind of several ways to kind of look at compliance as additive to voluntary markets. And just to quickly illustrate some of those, one is using carbon removal and cap and trade systems that allow for offsets as a compliance option for industrial emitters. The second is using carbon removal in things like clean fuel standards to help fuel producers meet net emissions reduction requirements and the carbon intensity of their fuels. You could also have sector-specific emissions reduction targets, and we see a lot of that in the power sector, for example. You can imagine a certain amount of that emissions performance standard requirement being able to be met through carbon removal in the future. And then a third is just kind of thinking about novel schemes. So carbon take-back obligation, for example. So basically for every ton that's emitted, an equivalent ton has to be removed and durably stored from the atmosphere. And I would just say that in summary, those options could act as major scaling vectors for carbon removal beyond the voluntary market, especially as we move toward, a future that's more characterized by higher technology readiness. And importantly, we should think about carbon removal integration into the compliance markets as certainly additive to the vital support that it is already receiving in the voluntary market. So we'll just kind of conclude by saying that both market constructs, voluntary and compliance, are important to help us get to scale.
Yeah, and lots to do, lots of scaling to be done for sure. So when we think about this purchase from MaRS, which was pretty small, pretty early, how are these early and small scale purchases like this one going to help us get to where we need to be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think about it just in kind of in three major buckets, the three C's, if you will. So catalytic, credibility, and community learning. So just to unpack those three a bit. In terms of catalytic, I think these types of purchases, serve as the early demand signal in the market from which we can then build upon from using perhaps some of those compliance market opportunities that I just mentioned. And then other strategies like direct government procurement. A common refrain that we've heard from project developers is that grants are great, but customers are better. So to the extent that we can mobilize government grants to support early project development, that's really great. But customers are the major opportunity and can provide that sort of longer term demand and market certainty for these companies. The second C is for credibility for both buyers and suppliers. On the buyer side, it can mean leading by example for what meaningful climate action looks like, getting ahead of potential regulations down the road, and also establishing in-house expertise to purchase high quality carbon credits, which can then be leveraged in the future, for when compliance becomes more of a mandate for companies. And then for suppliers, it can mean things like hiring a team, accessing other means of project finance, and attracting follow-on funding from other buyers. And then third, my personal favorite, but is for community learning. So, we can really just use the learnings from these types of purchases to better understand project-specific attributes. Those could include a number of things like scientific efficacy, safety, technology performance, public acceptance, just economic performance and costs. And using some of that information, we can also imagine you could start to design and develop industry standards and project-specific protocols that, will really help us define the rules of the road for project quality. And so aside from helping us get started on the scaling journey, purchases, in the voluntary market are really foundational just for learning by doing. And I think that is truly one of their biggest value adds to our community and to this industry. So, they allow us to push innovations from post-lab pilots to demonstrations to full-scale commercial projects, and allow us to just learn as much as we can along the way.
Great. And the 3 C's is a great way of thinking about that. So thanks, Tim. I'll definitely be taking that with me. And I want to turn over to Akash. So you've been the lead strategist at Ocean Frontier Institute for about 1.5 years. But prior to that, you worked in banking and capital markets and strategy consulting, right? So from that experience and perhaps using your expertise in marine carbon dioxide removal as an example, what would you say are some of the most important considerations that buyers at any scale should be thinking about when conducting a pre-purchase? and my thanks.
Sure. And again, thanks. Well, kudos again to the MaRS team, not only for this initiative, but everything else that's happening within Mission from MaRS. And congratulations to all the suppliers who have been awarded. So I think it's great to see Canada jumping into the forefront. So just to your question, so I think there are the things that buyers can do that are internal to the organization, and then there are things that will be really relevant to do it externally across the industry. So I'll focus on the internal one here for the pre-purchase question. So it starts with defining really the role of carbon removal in the corporate's overall net zero plans and the climate mandate, right? Which means really defining how much carbon removal do they need based on the emission footprint, right? And specifically emissions that could be easy to remove, but also those that could be really hard to abate, right? And so examples could be the complexity with Scope 3 emissions. They also need to define when they need those carbon credits, removal credits, right? And the most important aspect will be what are the characteristics of a carbon removal credit that we really need so that it truly offsets the emission liability that they have, right? So for example, if carbon removal is playing a role to offset some of low duration emissions, then CDR projects that are focused on afforestation that generally can give a lot of low durability credits because of the risk that they are put into could be an example of that. But and it may not make sense to go into some long durability CDR pathways such as MCDR, right? And vice versa is true too. So if they're hard to abate emission, then the characteristics that you need really from carbon removal credits need to match those durations. So it's similar constructs that large corporates, or I would say corporates in general, use in the asset liability management function, right? And so we really need to define the carbon removal characteristics that ideally match the emission liability that they have. And it needs to be done on a portfolio basis and on an ongoing basis, right? From that follows the pre-purchase, right? Because then once you know the carbon removal credits that you need in your portfolio, then what are the specific CDR pathways, and within that, what are the specific projects that can actually ideally meet those criteria, right? And so for me, like a lot of these things sound complex, and to a degree they are, but they are things that corporates do all the time to manage all sorts of different risks and liabilities that they have on their balance sheet, right? And so they can really accelerate their efforts on carbon removal by really adapting some of those practices that are already in-house and institutionalized, right? And the other aspect I would say is because large corporates are complex organizations, right? Like many different functions, many different product lines, business lines. But this is not a role that only ESG or CSR type functions play. I think it's really important to bring in the corporate strategy groups. It's really important to bring the office of the CFO and the treasury groups into the picture. And essentially, it's really meeting the needs of when Andy was showing the product adoption and scaling life cycle. This is like really at the first 2 or 3 chevrons in that slide. I think it's really important to define that stage. Cool.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Akash. And I want to bring in Rick for kind of the other side of that question. So Rick, you're the Director of Methodology at NORI. And for those who aren't familiar, NORI offers a fully integrated carbon removal issuing program, registry, and marketplace, and works with a lot of suppliers. So from your experience, what best practices can you share that have enabled suppliers to effectively generate and market their CDR credits? And maybe could you speak a little bit to how do they ensure that their proposals align with buyers' expectations for quality and sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ria, and congratulations to everyone involved with this purchase. So for the question for credit generation, the main thing is make sure suppliers are meeting or possibly exceeding industry standards for credit generation, and that's typically laid out in methodologies and registries and such. And these are things like, of course, adhering to regulatory requirements is, very low bar. You need to meet that. Substantial community engagement is a really important one, as we've all seen here and there across the industry. It's to really have meaningful two-way communication between the communities that are either care about what's happening or are impacted by what's happening. It's very important to engage with those folks and hopefully get buy-in. And there's of course interactions between those groups and the companies and the regulatory agencies and such. So all of those relationships are important to foster. For the technology itself, of course, high quality MRV and high quality life cycle assessment is very important for just calculating the credits that are involved. And one of the things that's very important in these things is to come out with an uncertainty estimate. If for any number you come out with for the CO2 uptake, to have an uncertainty estimate along with that so that we can adjust the crediting accordingly is very important. Other than that, of course, reversal risk mitigation, what are the mitigation safeguards that are in place? What happens if there is a reversal, all of those kinds of standards. And then, of course, for methodologies, they typically include assessment of environmental and social impacts. And those are need to be done for all of these pathways. And the main thing that those speak to is transparency to these communities that are going to be impacted by the projects. And I think the last main point I'd like to get across on this is how important transparency is across all of these projects. To the degree possible, if you can publish the methods, the data, and so on. Of course, there's always some amount of IP that needs to be protected, but beyond that absolute necessity, the more that you can make transparent, the better. The more that buyers are going to trust it, the more that communities are going to trust it, and so on. And I think that's very important, and to be combined with accessibility of that transparency. Just releasing raw sensor data or something like that's great, and that is useful, but very few people are going to understand what they're looking at in that case. So transforming it into some kind of form or report that's accessible for folks to really understand what's happening is critical as well.
Yeah, and probably great advice for vendors that are pitching their solutions in this early stage market. And I want to give the last question to Akash here. So I know that you transitioned, as I mentioned, from working in finance and strategy consulting to your current full-time focus on marine CDR. So given your familiarity with both sides, how can corporates and even the broader public get involved in CDR and carbon markets?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we're getting a much broader and deeper market participation from all types of players, including retail. I think we really need the market to become efficient, effective, and have proper risk controls to safeguard all the market participants. Basically, what we have in traditional asset classes today, whether you're looking at global equities, fixed income currencies, and so on. And so I think that's a really critical requirement. I think the stage will be set by large institutional corporate players. And once we have the right market infrastructure, the smaller players will follow, including retail. And so the corporates have a really important role to play here. And there are main things I think corporates can do. And here I'm going to touch on some things that are really relevant to do at the industry level rather than internal to their organizations. And these are some examples, right? It's not an exhaustive list by any means, but I think the first one is standardization. And I don't mean standards from like scientific standards for a given CDR pathway, but I mean standardized pre-purchase and offtake agreements or any transactional deals. So today, most of the pre-purchase agreements, including the one that we probably are going through here, are done on a custom bespoke level, right? And the market cannot scale if every deal is done on a customized approach. I think we need standardized contracts that meet the needs that are industry accepted, but also meet the needs of majority of transactions, whether it's offtake agreements or pre-purchase, and leaves enough room for customization for very specific exceptional cases where deals have to be structured, right? That's how even if you go back to like derivatives, that's how they are done. They're industry standardized contracts, and that's why you get massive scale and volume of deals happening. And I think we ultimately need to get to that, right? And so that's one example. The second would be really a market infrastructure for VCM, for voluntary carbon market, right? And compliance market is slightly different that Tim was talking about. But if you look at VCM, I think one of the big challenges that carbon credits are not fungible today. It's not really an asset class. People think it can become an asset class, but it's not an asset class. And the critical challenge is the fungibility or lack of fungibility, right? The second, if you look at the way transactions are done, it acts more like a private placement than a trading market, right? Even though there are trades that happen and there is a secondary market to it, but it's highly liquid and highly non-transparent, right? Those things need to be addressed. Like market will not scale under those environments, right? And so when I speak to my former colleagues in capital markets about VCM, most of the, including Canadian bank-owned dealers and other financial institutions are involved in it, but to a very small degree, not with the whole heft that they can bring to really develop market infrastructure. And the common theme for why that is the case that I keep hearing is the market is too small. And so, and there's a chicken and egg problem, right? So they are not getting involved in really developing their market infrastructure because it's too small. Until we have the market infrastructure, the market will not be able to scale and become the size. So it's so there is a chicken and egg. I think the impetus for really getting to that is demand creation. And so we know today the market is already supply constrained and not demand constrained. But even the excess demand that's not being met is not material enough to really attract institutional players into this, right? And just if you just look back 3 decades, right? I mean, derivatives didn't even exist till late 80s. And now we have derivatives on almost every asset class. We have things like weather derivatives, right? And so, financial institutions have a playbook of how to really build up market infrastructure for all sorts of different asset classes and products. And so I think we need to do that. And so to me, the corporates play really a critical role in shaping the market, creating that excess demand, and get the impetus for financial intermediaries to come in and shape the market. And it's really important because VCM is a self-regulated market. And from what I heard from most of the market practitioners, that it will remain a self-regulated market. And so having the maturity and sophistication of institutional players is very critical.
Okay.
Cool.
So any corporates in the audience, please take note. Thanks, Akash, for that. And thank you, Rick and Tim, as well, for your fantastic answers. Thanks to all 3 of you for helping us with our review of these purchases. Would not be here today without your support. So huge shout out to the 3 of you. With that, that concludes our panel. So thanks again. And I'll pass the mic back over to Andy to wrap it up.
Awesome. Thanks, Ria. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks to our ventures and to Brian. Thanks to everyone, including you in the audience, for following us and continuing to be with us on this journey. If you're interested in anyone that spoke today or anything that we've talked about, whether it's the Liftoff program, supporting as a funder, learning more about our vision for the future of the markets, and anything else, definitely feel free to reach out to us. You can hit us up at mfm@marsdb.com. And if you do, Ria and/or I will see it and get back to you. Great. So that concludes today's webinar. Thanks again for joining, and look forward to seeing you at the next thing. Oh, Akash, did you have closing word?
I was trying to click the applause button, but I hit lower hand. Sorry.
Okay, I'll do it for you. Cheers. Thank you. I should be applauding you guys. Awesome.